Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Board of Directors meeting at 5:02, Wednesday, May 26th. I'd like to read the agenda and make sure everybody's okay with that. Begin with public comments is item 1. Item 2 is finance and operations and any related, that's treasurer's report, contract renewal, and food service contract. The consent agenda, which includes minutes, warrants, leaves, retirements, resignations, and nominations. We have 8 policies this evening. We don't need to list those right now. Item 5 is the superintendent's report. Item 6 is the chair's report. We have room for other. Item 8 is informational, the budget status report and the student enrollment for May of 2021. And item 9, we'll ask to go into an executive session as per 1 VSA 313A3 for the appointment or employment or evaluation of public officer, etc. Is the agenda.
Can I ask the chair if we could amend the agenda? We're asking for the appointment of the SVSU treasurer. Renee will speak to that. If we could put that under finance.
Under finance. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
Any opposed? Okay. Then we'll put that under item 2. Anything else with the agenda?
I believe Scott has joined the committee too. I see that he's here too. So you now have 9 members present.
Okay, I'm not sure that Richard has all the names.
Yeah, Richard is here.
Say that again?
Richard is present, so.
Yes, but does he know who's here?
I have Dick, Fran, Leon, Jackie, Ray, Chayla, Nicole, Matt, and Scott.
Those are board members. We also have
Yeah.
Cat TV. We have Jim and Nick Galt. We have Laura Boudreau and some members of the public. And we should get to public comments. Item 1. The floor is open for public comments.
Hi, I'd like to make a comment.
Is that Katie Sullivan? Who?
No, this is Liz Duffy.
Oh, Liz Duffy,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hello, I just wanted to mention and just say my support for starting a parental advisory committee with the board. You know, I know that this is something that I think is very much needed to have more parental involvement in the SVSU. I think it will help bridge the gap in communication that I feel like you know, we could use more of on the parent side. So I'm really excited to hear there might be an opportunity to have that parental advisory committee. So I just wanted to show my support for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Megan?
You're at Katie.
That's.
You have, I'll tell you, you have.
Oh, we got a bunch. Okay, I see all the hands.
Yep.
Well, let's start on one side here. Katie Sullivan.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Katie Bernell Sullivan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an educator as well as president of Southwest Vermont Education Association. A little bit about me. I grew up in a family where playing school was a regular occurrence, where my stuffed animals and sometimes my unwilling siblings attended lessons that emulated the amazing educators that I had in school. As I developed my 1-bedroom schoolhouse, I dreamt of becoming an educator. I dreamt of helping students build their love of learning, of building pride within themselves, their accomplishments, of sharing the world through many different lenses, teaching creative problem-solving skills, and helping students lose themselves in another world in the pages of a book that took them to faraway lands or their incredible imagination. I dreamt of working alongside amazing educators, forming relationships in and out of the classroom to help me grow in my practice and learn new skills to assist me in educating students. I know many of my fellow educators on this call had the same dreams. I must have grown up a dreamer because in my dream school, Teachers were well-respected, valued, and celebrated members of the community. School board members celebrated successes, talked highly about the educators employed in their districts, and sang from the rooftops the amazing events and education happening in their schools. While I recognize that some of my dreams cannot be achieved in this pandemic and post-pandemic world and physical distancing restrictions, one aspect I thought would be achieved would be this overwhelming pride and respect for the teaching profession and specifically SVSU educators. We as educators achieved an amazing accomplishment and learned and executed new skills to reach our students. Did you know in 1937, teachers actually taught through radio broadcasting due to a polio outbreak in Chicago? This was thought to be groundbreaking. What students, families, faculty, staff, and administrators have been able to achieve during this time of the pandemic is also groundbreaking. On top of these groundbreaking actions, educators overwhelmingly entered into good faith agreement with the boards during a time of financial uncertainty, an agreement that feels so quickly overlooked and forgotten. Upon entering into negotiations this year, I once again dreamt that teachers would feel the respect and value they so much deserve. The actions or lack thereof taken by representatives of the school board have not allowed educators to feel that respect. My colleagues and fellow educators have shown dedication, endurance, and perseverance in a time where the world is living in an unknown. While I do not expect nor demand outright acceptance of SWVA's proposals, what I do expect is to negotiate. So why am I here sharing my dreams tonight of the past and the future? I'm hoping my attendance will spark a conversation on many levels. As of yet, I feel there's been little to no conversation, no back and forth in the negotiation process. I urge you as SVSU representatives to reach out to your fellow board members who sit on the negotiations committee and ask them to negotiate. Ask your fellow board members to come to the table ready to discuss counter proposals, finesse language, and be prepared to reach a settlement. Tell them SVSU educators deserve to feel they're valued and respected by this board, the negotiations committee, and this community. Having a settlement that addresses equitable prep time amongst elementary schools, addresses the need for a safer learning environment for students and staff, and a dignified compensation that accurately reflects our value and will attract and retain high quality teachers to our district. As John Paul DeJorio states, when people come first, success will follow. Please reach out to your fellow school board representatives and ask them to negotiate with SVSU educators so together we may build successes. Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask that we keep our comments as brief as possible simply because we have an agenda to get through. Megan, if you could, Megan Morgan.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the SVSU board. I'll try to keep this quick. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Megan Morgan-Puglisi, a math teacher at the high school and chief negotiator for the teachers union this negotiation cycle. I'm here tonight in support of negotiations. We're asking for language in the contract that ensures 1, the safety of our educators and students, 2, equity in preparation time for our elementary educators, and 3, a dignified salary increase to bring us closer to competitive with neighboring districts. This is my 9th year in the district. In that time, I've seen us lose many young, talented teachers to other districts close by because our pay is not competitive. Our students deserve experienced teachers who are invested in our community. They deserve teachers who are afforded time to prep, plan, and collaborate to create engaging, worthwhile lessons. There are 5 elementary schools in the same district, and the time a child's teacher gets to prepare, collaborate, and plan optimal learning experiences for students should not depend on the school that child attends. Furthermore, our children deserve safe schools where they're not afraid of students being returned to class after an incident without so much as a conversation happening beforehand. All we're asking is for the board to put some language in the contract to ensure students and staff stay safe. I encourage all of the members of this board to talk to the members of the negotiations team. I ask publicly for the team itself to be willing to engage in discussion around these proposals so we can reach a settlement at our next mediation session. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa. Do I see your hand up, Melissa?
Yes, yeah. I'm just coming on to show my support for the Parent Advisory Committee idea. I would like to see that go forward. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in Shaftesbury. I know sometimes you like to know that. I think that especially during COVID, it's really become clear that parents are really need to be part of the conversation when it comes to schools. And I really think that more parent input on things would help SVSU to improve, especially as our district grows, including more schools. Now that Arlington is coming in, it's just that much more important that parents have a say in our policies and what's going on in the district. Thank you.
I'm not sure we got your last name, Melissa, for the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miola, Melissa Miola in Shaftesbury.
So that Richard gets that in the minutes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Next hand up I see is Jeff Leake.
Hello, good evening. Just to let people know, if you want to raise your hands, if you go to reaction, there's a place to raise your hand there. So if people don't know how to do that, that's where you'd go. I'm here, my wife, I'm Jeff Leake from Shaftesbury. I'm a resident in Shaftesbury. I'm here with my wife, Susan Dinah Ivy as well. We're here in support of the Parent Advisory Committee possibility within the district. What we think this would do is to form a group of parents across the supervisory union to encourage an honest and effective communication, understanding and mutual respect in a supportive partnership inclusive of all students, parents, educators, and the community at large. And in an effort to ensure that they deliver appropriate services to our students, to help provide input on new policies, projects, materials that impacts the students and their families and the general population and the special education population. So I do encourage the SVSU to consider starting this group. I think it would help bridge a gap that is much needed between parents and the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Next hand up I see is John. Where's John?
I'm right here.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to. Yeah,
your last name also, John, for the minutes, please.
Is Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here just to show my support and echo that support for the Parent Advisory Committee. I believe it is a good thing and it will show transparency. Keeping it short, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, John. Other public comments? I see Mia Schultz. Go ahead, Mia. Oop, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Thank you. I'm just here to support the concept of a parent advisory committee. I'm also here to support the teachers in anything they need for their safety, if that means anything to this crew. Short and sweet, just like you like. All done.
Thank you. Any other comments in the public comment section? Thank you for your comments. The board will take them under consideration. Item 2 is finance and related operations. We have a treasurer's report from April 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move it. I'll second it.
We have a motion from Fran, a second from Leon. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the report signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No abstentions? Motion carries, the report is accepted. We have item B, the renewal of the cleaning contract. We are looking for a motion to renew that cleaning contract.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Fran and a second from Leon again. Renee, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I put a memo together and put it in the board packet. The company that we currently contract with, Janitronics Services, our early education program, as well as the central office building. Within state statute, we can renew that contract as long as the contractor is willing to do so at a rate not in excess of what the NEAP index is. And this year that was set or calculated to be 2.6%, and they are willing to go ahead and renew for that increase. Those of you who serve on the SVU ESD board, you'll see the same thing on your next agenda, because Janitronics also cleans the 3 Bennington elementary schools.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to renew the cleaning contract 2.6% increase. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No abstentions? Motion carries. Item C is renewal of food service contracts. I remember reading this and there were 2 items, I think, requiring 2 motions, and I don't have it right in front of me. Do we have a motion to renew?
Second it.
All right, we have a motion from Fran, a second from Leon. Food service contracts. Are you addressing that also, Renee?
Sure. So just a little background. The way that the USDA allows us to contract with food service management companies, we go out to bid, we go into an initial contract, and we can renew that contract for up to 4 years. So essentially we have that contract for our contractor for 5 years. We were in the process of putting together an RFP, a request for proposal, for a food service management contract to start July 1 of 2021. But because of the pandemic, the USDA granted a waiver to those contracts that were in that 5th year, granting them 1 additional year. So hopefully, what will happen this fall, we'll have a process that kind of looks like normal to actually go out to bid for the food service management contract. So this is actually would be our 6th year with the Abbey Group. No change to the contract. They have agreed, which is a requirement of USDA as well, is that they have to keep all the terms the same. So item number 1 is requesting that renewal for the 6th year per waiver of the USDA. And then the second item is renewal of the food service management company contract for Baton Valley. Because Baton, the SU is dissolving and Arlington and Sandgate school districts are coming under our SU. They are currently in year 3 with Fresh Picks Cafe. So it is that committee's, or I guess the administration's desire to continue that contract for year 4 with Fresh Picks Cafe. So nothing out of the ordinary on that one. Just year 4 of a potential 5-year agreement. And the Agency of Education Child Nutrition Programs has confirmed that the SVSU can be party to 2 separate food service management contracts, as we would in this case. So we'll be taking over Baton Valley's place with Fresh Picks Cafe.
Thank you. Well, so we are looking for 2 motions. If we have a motion for the renewal of the food service contract per waiver.
Move it.
Second.
Second.
I'm not sure who was. I saw Leon and Fran as a second. Is there any further discussion regarding the renewal of the contract with Abby? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Are there any abstentions? None. And the motion carries to renew the contract with Abby per waiver. The second motion we might want is for the SVSU. I'm sorry, you said what?
I said I'll move it.
Okay.
Before you get there.
Before. Okay, we have a motion to have SVSU bind into a contract covering BVSU's food contract. I think I have that right.
All right.
So we have a motion from Fran, second from Leon. Any discussion? No. Okay. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No abstentions? Motion carries so that BVSU's contract can be folded in or supervised. And item D, the appointment of a new finance director, not finance director, sorry, treasurer.
No, Renee's not going anywhere yet.
Renee's not going anywhere. Sorry, Renee.
Treasurer for the SVSU, your current treasurer is retiring at the end of this fiscal year. So Renee and I did interview a candidate, so I'll turn it over to Renee at this point to talk about who we are going to recommend that you appoint.
So yes, so Gail Morset has been the SVSU treasurer and MAU treasurer, I believe, since 2007. We only had one candidate willing to serve in both roles, and that is David Durfee, who is actually a board member for Mount Anthony. MAU board did appoint him last week, so he will be stepping down from his role as a board member and joining as the treasurer. And it would be our recommendation that he be the SVSU treasurer as well.
Which is for 1 year, correct? Renee?
Yes.
Yes.
And that includes all the qualifications we need.
I'll move it.
Motion by Leon, second from Fran. Further discussion.
He is qualified for the position, Dick, to answer your question. When Renee and I interviewed him, his background and his degree in business administration and some of the other positions that he's held. So I think he's qualified for this position.
Thank you, Jim. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
It seems to me that there should have been a nomination form for this, so that we could actually see those qualifications. I don't doubt he's qualified because I know his background to some extent, but it seems to me that this is an appointment, so it seems like there should be a nomination form with a listing, you know, all the normal material you'd expect to see for that.
Well, if the board wishes, we can delay it to that, but I know that why we asked for the agenda to be amended and bring it forward is the amount of paperwork that has to happen before the end of the fiscal year to change it over.
Change over accounts, yeah, right. I got you.
So
I'm not willing to hold up the vote. I'm just saying I do think that a nomination form would have been appropriate and within normal procedure.
But up until not too far before this meeting, I wasn't sure this was going to be on the agenda, so I apologize for that. We are operating very differently than we normally do.
Yeah. So do you think that could be sent out?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
It could be just included in the next packet for information purposes, because we're looking at voting for the appointment.
Yep. I appreciate the board's consideration tonight for it, because I know that Renee is stressing to get this done by July 1.
Yeah, I bet.
So do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
And a second.
Okay, and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, and we have a new treasurer.
I would like to thank Gail and her many years of service, and I hope that the board will join me in granting that. And if she is available at your June meeting, maybe we could invite her so that you all could to thank her for her years of service. You don't usually see the treasurer all the time, but the amount of work that they put in behind the scenes, those who've been through the process know, so we wouldn't be able to do it without her. And I want to publicly thank her and for her hard work. And so again, I hope you join me with that, and we'll see if she's available to come at the June meeting.
Should we create a resolution to that effect?
If the board would like that, I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I think we should. She's been there for a long time and done a good job. So.
Is that something you can put together, Ray?
Get a motion to.
Yeah, well, a motion that we, I guess this is a motion that we create a board communication to Gail, thanking her for her services. And however that gets written, I can write it, or Chayla, is Chayla our scribe? I forget.
Yeah.
Yes, and Renee could give Chayla the information as far as dates that she served and all that.
Yes, right.
Right. We have a motion from Ray. We need a second.
Second.
Second from Leon. Any other discussion? All those in favor of a congratulatory piece, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Any abstentions? None. So Chayla, we'll add another thing to your list. Consent agenda, item 3, which includes minutes, warrants, leave of absence. I don't think there were any leaves, retirements, resignations, and nominations. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Motion by Fran. Second from Ray. Is there discussion regarding the consent agenda?
I have to abstain, Leon, because of being out for the minutes on there for the last meeting. So just wanted to know that's why when that comes around, I'll be abstaining. For the
Could we perhaps reformat this to excuse the minutes to a separate resolution?
That would be
great.
Matt
Bykowski's in the same boat here. I was absent, so I need to abstain due to them not being there for the minutes.
Okay.
I'm in the same boat as well.
Okay. How about we withdraw the minutes from the consent agenda? That meets everybody's approval, and we were still voting on warrants, retirements, resignations, and nominations.
Who was the person who moved the motion? That wasn't me. I was the second, wasn't I?
Oh, I was the second.
That was you, Ray. And
it was me. Okay, so I'm changing the motion. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I see no opposed, but there are several abstentions, which include Scott, Leon, and
wait a second.
We're going to do them separate. One for minutes, separate.
This was a separate motion, so it excluded the minutes.
My apologies. Okay, so we have accepted the consent agenda without the minutes. Now we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move them.
Motion from Fran, second Jackie. Discussion on the minutes only. Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And abstentions.
Leon.
Aye. Matt Bykowski.
Leon, Matt, and did I see Scott earlier?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, 3 abstentions. The minutes are accepted. Policy is our next item. There are 8 policies here. We're looking to adopt each of them. I believe I was advised it's best to adopt individually. So the first policy is number 1000, Policy Drafting Committee. Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Motion from Leon, second Jackie. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed, Matt, or you are?
No, I was an aye. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. No abstentions. The policy is adopted. Item number 2400, access control. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion by Leon.
Second.
Second, Jackie. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? 2400 is adopted. 2450 security cameras. Motion, please.
So move.
Motion
Second.
by Leon, second Jackie. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting 2450 security cameras signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? 2450 is adopted. 4327 Family Medical Leave Act. A motion to adopt.
So move.
Motion from Leon.
Second.
Second from Jackie. No discussion. Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? 4327 is adopted. 5009 Title I comparability. Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Motion by Leon.
Second.
Second, Jackie. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting 5009 Title I comparability signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No abstentions. 5009 is adopted. 5010 compensatory education parent involvement. Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Leon, second Jackie. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting compensatory education parent involvement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 5010 compensatory education is adopted. 5156 student nutrition and wellness. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion from
Second.
Leon, second Jackie. Any discussion? All those in favor of 5156 adoption signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions? 5156 is adopted. 5405 behavioral intervention. Is there a motion to adopt?
So move.
Motion
Second.
by Leon, second by Jackie. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting 5405 behavioral intervention signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion carries. The behavioral intervention policy is adopted. Item 5 is the superintendent's report. You're on, Jim. But you got to unmute.
How's that? Is that any better?
It's better.
All right. Previous meeting, there were questions about the exit interviews that are being conducted in the SU as employees leave us for whatever reason. So I went to our resident expert, Human Resources Director, Nick Galt, and asked him to prepare a presentation for tonight's board meeting. It was better to do it as we get closer to the end of the year, and you'll see from his report that he still hasn't completed all the exit interviews for this year, but you can see what he's tracking. So at this point of the superintendent's report, I'm going to turn it over to HR Director Nick Galt. Nick?
Good evening.
I gotta let you share the screen too. Hold on.
I don't know that I actually need to put it up on the screen.
Okay, I already made you a co-host, so if
okay.
you do, yep.
I might throw one slide up here in a minute. Okay, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So to sort of provide an introduction, I want to talk about the process, what we do. Our exit interviews are not mandatory. We make them optional. Not all employers even conduct exit interviews. Just this week, I was contacted by another school district asking if we did. asking about our practice because they were starting it for the first time. We make them optional. We don't make them mandatory. You know, research shows that if you make them mandatory, you're more likely to receive not the most useful feedback from people who aren't interested in doing it. You know, everything's fine or everything's okay. And so we, you know, despite making it optional, we get really good turnout. As of this year, out of a total of 44 employees who have left or are leaving as of the end of the year, so far I've conducted 21 exit interviews. So already we're at about 50%. Of those 44, 11 said they either weren't interested or they weren't available due to the circumstances of why they departed. And 12 more, the remaining 12 I'm working with now, or have contacted about scheduling between now and the end of the year. So 21 done of the 44 so far that have departed or are scheduled to depart. So back to the process. It's a confidential process. When I meet with someone for an exit interview, I explain to them that I never sit down with any one individual or any group of individuals and share the information from their exit interview. I'll never sit down and say, Superintendent Kalkeen, let me talk to you about Renee Gordon's exit interview. I want the process to be confidential so that they can be candid, they can share information, the good and the bad, and feel that that's a safe place to do so. So I'll often get the question, well, what do you do with the information then? So I share it in aggregate. So I would go to the superintendent and say, I'm seeing a trend, or we're seeing some issues arise in a specific building or around a specific area. And then he and we as a team can use that information to inform all sorts of decisions, including personnel decisions. We can't disclose sort of the specifics of that. Obviously, that'd be a breach of confidentiality, both in terms of employees who are sharing feedback with us, as well as the the personnel that have been impacted by some of those potential decisions. In terms of the types of questions we ask, we use a standard questionnaire that we generated, that we sort of modified over the years. We ask questions from a number of different categories. Your basic, what are your reasons for leaving, which can be, can lead to some other questions. We ask what their new organization is offering that the current one doesn't. We talk about different aspects of employment with the SVSU. So there we're looking for the district as a whole, as opposed to their building specifically. We talk about culture and climate within their building. We talk about their building administrator on a number of levels, about communication, responding to feedback, providing leadership, a whole host of questions about supervisors. We talk about salary and benefits to gauge where they feel we are in those terms. We also talk about expectations. We talk about things that they wish they'd known before they started here. And then, kind of the catch-alls at the end, what can we be doing better? So a good question that we ask is, what would you suggest to leadership to make our organization a better place to work? Would you recommend this organization to others as a place to work? I do these all one-on-one. They used to be mailed out prior to when I took over exit interviews. And I find that it leads to a lot of really good conversations. I say really good, they're not all positive, but good conversations. I would say the average one lasts an hour, maybe more. Some last an hour and a half, some as long as 2 hours. And I do them because they matter. I wouldn't spend my time or the district's time doing these if we didn't intend to use that information. That would be a tremendous waste of my time and our resources to spend what might be 50, 60, 70 hours over the course of a year doing exit interviews. Provide a little context before I kind of share some summary information. When we look at, I know this isn't a conversation about retention, but when we look at our turnover rates compared to national turnover rates, we come in consistently below. And I won't talk about the reasons why I feel we do that, but I just think it's a good indicator. Nationally, approximately 8% of teachers will leave the profession outright every year. In fact, 50% of teachers will leave the profession before reaching retirement. And then another approximately 8%, depending on the region, will leave to take positions at other schools. So nationally, schools see between 14 and 16% of their teachers leave every year. We're consistently below that. We hover right around 10% a year. So of a base of between 315, 325 teachers, we typically see around 30, 32, 33 teachers departing and new teachers being hired each year. So I think that's I won't talk about why I think that is, but I just think it's important to know that context when we talk about the reasons that people leave. So when we look at specifically things that have happened this year, when I looked back and I collected a lot of information, one factor that did play a factor was COVID. We did have people cite COVID as their reason for either deciding now was the time, maybe they were retiring, they may have resigned their position because they weren't comfortable being in the schools due to COVID. We had, of our 44 exit interviews, 7 actually cited COVID as a reason for that. A primary reason. We're also seeing a handful of people, not a large number, but people who were on the fence about retirement, but made the decision now due to the looming pension conversations happening at the state level, the concern that their pension might change. And I would say there was only a small handful of people that said, I was ready, I think I was ready, but that was sort of a factor that definitely played into my decision. When we look at, I think I talked a little bit about this already, but as of today, we have 44 employees that are departing or have departed this year. Of those, 20 are teachers, 16 are support staff, and 8 are professional staff or administrators, of a base of about 625 employees. So right now we're at 20 teachers. We expect somewhere around 30, 32 teachers. So we're still below the 10% number that we tend to expect, and the same thing for support staff. We tend to expect about 20 of those per year if you go with a 10% number. When we look at reasons, so here I'm going to talk pretty broadly. As I said earlier, it's important to me that going forward, staff know that they can share, the very specifics, the intimate details of their employment, with the understanding that we're going to use that information for change, and with the understanding that I don't share that with anybody, certainly not in a public meeting. But generally, what we see is generally positive feedback. We have employees with a lot of tenure who have been here for a long time. We have a low turnover rate generally. And so I would say overall, on the whole, that the information that we receive through exit interviews tends to be positive. Certainly that's not true of everyone we speak with. We're talking to people at a point in their life or in their career where if it's not retirement related, they've made a decision to leave our employment. So that is not always going to be positive feedback. They leave for a variety of reasons. When we look at those reasons, for those 44 that that are retiring or resigning this year, I've only spoken to 21, but you're able to understand the reasons for leaving for some of them because of the letter, because of information they've shared. So we often know why they're leaving even prior to an exit interview. So of those, this year we have 17 who are retiring. I mentioned 7 who had resigned due to COVID-related reasons, some of whom are looking for reemployment next year, which is really positive. 3 that have left for health-related reasons, which is pretty typical that you'll have a handful of people that leave for those reasons. 11 that I noted are leaving for other opportunities, whether they're educational opportunities or not. So other employment. They may be leaving to teach, they may be leaving to leave the profession, but right now we have 11 that are leaving for other opportunities. I have 3 that are relocating, typically, far away. So they might be moving to Florida or Texas or something like that. And then I have a handful that fall into kind of an other category. Go back to my notes here. So those are the primary reasons. There are multiple reasons. Somebody who is leaving for other opportunities may be leaving because there's a positive move that they can make. Maybe they're moving into administration. Maybe they're moving to a school district that is closer to home or something like that. And certainly there are people who are leaving for other opportunities because they're not happy here. And as I said before, we're talking to employees at a time in their career where they're looking for change and they're doing something different and they want to leave. So I'm not going to stand here today and say, or sit here today and say that, we have universally positive feedback. You have absolutely employees who have concerns about, multiple different things. And as I said earlier, we use that information to enact change. I think, so the kind of last thing that I put on my notes list is kind of what isn't happening. What we don't see, which I think people think happens more frequently than it does, is teachers leaving to go just over the border. I think we hear that narrative sometimes. Certainly it happens. We are right at the corner of Massachusetts and New York. Does it happen with any frequency that I think the board should be concerned about? No. Do we see teachers leaving in droves to go to other school districts within the state of Vermont? Also, no. Does it happen every year? A handful of people? Absolutely. Just like in any other employer, you move to another business that's in the same town or the town over. But it's neither are happening to a degree that would be worrying. When I look at the numbers for this year, I think we have, I made a note here, we have 3 teachers that are taking other positions within the state of Vermont. Nobody as of right now that's leaving to go just over the border. We typically have, 1 or 2 people that might go over to the New York area or something like that. We do have people who are relocating altogether to other states. So that's my, I said I'd keep it short. That's my attempt at keeping it short. Hopefully that provides some context, a little bit of information about the whys, gives you a sense of what we do with the information. Overall, I think the process works. I think we go into it with an expectation that we're going to collect useful information, we're going to use it. And as I said before, we wouldn't go through that process if there wasn't value to it. And I intend to keep doing it. I'm open to suggestions for things we could do differently. But I think overall, it's a positive, useful experience for us and hopefully for the employee.
Thank you, Nick. And I will say that Nick never shares with me any individual exit interview, but I do get composites from time to time, and he will alert me if there's something that I feel that I need to address within a certain school. But that's been very rare, and or if there is a specific complaint that may come out, that then I would ask him if he could get a release from the person in the interview to speak to me. And there have been things that have come up in exit interviews that then I've spoken to the individual based on things they've said. But again, it's rare. So it's a lot of useful information. So does anyone have, any board members have questions for Nick?
Leon, this is exactly what we wanted and asked for Nick to do in terms of the exit interview process. And so I just want to thank you for it. That's a good job.
Yeah, he's improved the process, and I think that the personal touch in interviews, which takes a tremendous amount of his time, has improved the results as opposed to just mailing out a survey.
Right.
Thank you, Nick.
I want to echo, our board had some questions about exit interviews for teachers and staff from Arlington, and Nick was a great resource for Bill Basic. And we will be, to the extent that Nick has capacity, we certainly have far fewer employees, but Nick will be a resource for us as well in looking to gain that valuable information on our departing employees.
Are you saying
Ray has his hand up, Ray?
Yep. So Nicole, are you saying that Nick did interviews of Arlington?
Has not yet.
Okay.
Has not yet. Currently has shared kind of the guideline, the template in a sense that he's using.
Right.
And we will, again, as Nick's schedule allows, we will come under kind of his oversight of exit interviews going forward.
And we'll see like what Arlington's turnover rate is, and what we are just beginning to learn, like what typically how many may leave Arlington in any given year. We have a pretty good idea. It's been consistent percentage-wise for a number of years here in our district. So we'll see, but we will do everything we can.
Yeah, and I'm grateful. There was some question from our board about who should be conducting the exit interviews. And so to have somebody with the HR expertise who can conduct them in a confidential manner is greatly appreciated.
I think Nicole, that is the key piece. It is confident. People, staff members are told right up front that it's confidential, but there's always an avenue to open that up. If Nick hears something that he feels I need to see or hear, then that can be addressed. And if the individual wants to release it, then I can act on it.
Right.
Right. Any other questions, Nick, before I go to my next?
Yeah, Ray.
Ray has a question.
I did want to thank Nick for what he shared, and I'm impressed with the amount of time you spend doing these things. And the confidentiality, of course, is key. I actually had a question about kind of a metrics of the departing, sort of the people who are departing from employment here, in terms of, I was thinking in terms of the loss of talent that that they represent, and the amount of investment in professional development and in advanced degrees and so forth. Do you track that stuff in a non-nominated form, just an aggregate form?
No. I think it'd be really interesting. I think, you know, I might be giving myself more homework here, but I think there's additional work to be done in terms of, you know, we don't track retention. So you know, we just talked about turnover. Right. A really good metric that we could track is something like retention. So of new teachers, how many teachers are we keeping beyond the 3-year mark? There's stuff like that we could absolutely be going.
There's national numbers on that, Nick, but we don't have it locally. Like how many are, because what that would be for me, Ray, crucial information for me is how many are leaving before they've done the requirements to get professionally licensed. You know, that, you know, they're or that they left while their provisional license expired. So those are things. And then is there ways that we can enhance that and help that? So, but I do think it's encouraging to know that we are below the national average. Not that, you know, you don't always want to be better, but I'm not hearing alarm bells, but we continue to monitor it, and we're doing it for a reason. Yep.
I was brought up what I did because it seems to me that you're replacing these people, and now some of them may be, you know, have only been here a short time and be in the early stages of a career if they continue it. But then many of them have been here a long time and in the latter stages of a career, and they represent a substantial investment by the community through this school system in their activity and in their continuing education. So it seems to me that those kind of metric things which are more statistical and objective facts about the person employed that could be might be useful to know how much experience is going out the door and what experience to compare it to the experience that's coming in the door.
So onboarding is certainly expensive, and it's always a concern for us, but also there is an expense and cost and time and money for tracking all this. And that's something we always have to balance. Yep.
I mean, he's talking about maybe he's going to have 70 hours, not maybe 70 interviews. You talked about 21 plus another 12, so 33 interviews theoretically, and you might spend as much as 60 to 70 hours. That is a lot of cost.
That's just the time for the interview. It's not the time, you know, back and forth emails to set up the interview. It's, you know, so that takes time too.
And taking care of your notes and your whatever information you take out of the interview
you have to figure there's at least as much time after or before each interview as there is in the interview to set it up and then to extract any information from it. So, and that's why I'm grateful that we have an HR department. The SU did not always have that. So, any other questions for Nick? And I'll go on with my report if not.
Go ahead, Jim.
All right. So, I want to introduce you tonight to Jonathan Phipps, our equity coordinator from the SVSU. I apologize that we didn't have him here last month. And it was an error that he was on the agenda the previous month, but he wasn't able to attend. And when I was preparing for last month's meeting and I'm looking at the agenda and I saw his name on it, and Laura and I were convinced that he had already been introduced to you, and you're going to say as we cycle him through all the boards, it was easy to miss one. So I apologize that he wasn't here last month. And I have to say that it wasn't because he wanted to. before the last month's meeting, he reached out to me and said, am I coming to the meeting tonight? And I said, no, we've already done that. So, so actually, Jonathan, I'm going to say it's kind of your fault because you should have said, no, I haven't been to the SU. So anyway, so here tonight at the SU is I hesitate to use the term new because he's been with us for a few months now, but he's going to introduce himself to you. He's quite capable of introducing himself to the SVSU Equity Coordinator, Jonathan Phipps. Jonathan, welcome.
We'll call it mutual blame. How about that? That's a compromise. Yeah. So first thing, I do want to apologize if I do cut out. It is thunderstorming outside and my power is a bit on the weird side. So that's not me being rude or anything like that. So as described, my name is Jonathan Phipps. I'm the SVSU's new-ish equity coordinator. I've been here for 4 months since February, late January, early February. My job, I basically say it in the most layman terms, is to make sure that the SVSU is equipped to be in the 21st century in terms of inclusion, diversity, and understanding the needs of workers, students, and families that are represented within the SVSU. I have an entry plan that I normally do go over. I'm going to kind of condense it though, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of the entry plan. I'm going to talk about one of the things that is actually coming to fruition next year from the entry plan. So my entry plan is made up of 3 different parts. The first of which is, infrastructure and professional training. That's making sure that our teachers and our system has the infrastructure that is in place so that we can make sure that we are well equipped to pursue the goals of equity throughout the school system. This infrastructure includes things such as tracking mechanisms, usage of data, and also professional learning opportunities for teachers to ensure that they understand the challenges and the necessity of their job that they have. Next part, excuse me for a second, my allergies are beginning to kick up and I'm trying not to sneeze. If I do, I apologize again, but the next part is accountability and tracking. This goes hand in hand with infrastructure. The thing that I'm going to be discussing next is part 1 and part 2 as well. So like we'll get into deeper that. Like equity is an ongoing process. There's never an end point where you're actually like, oh yeah, we achieved equity, yay, that's perfect. What we need is mechanisms where we can track our progress and track how we're doing and track our shortcomings so that we can address them in a timely and efficient manner. That's one of my focuses in making sure the SVSU is equipped to do that. Because if we're able to do that, then a lot of issues that we would encounter would actually be rectified. And the final big part of my entry plan is simply outreach and community engagement. I am a firm believer that equity is a product of communication. I use this analogy often. Equity really, if you want to use a very day-to-day analogy, to which I would believe a lot of us are familiar with, is if you're in a long-term relationship or a marriage, equity in the United States is a lot like that. You are in a relationship with a partner that you may or may not agree with. If you're lucky, you agree with them on more than 50% of the stuff. If you're not, then it's somewhere around that. Like me and my partner, we agree on maybe 50%. It takes constant communication and having difficult conversations between the two of us and assessing where we are and making sure we understand each other's needs, wants, desires, and how we feel in the situation to make sure that we are successful in this. And that's the third part of my job in which I'm doing. I reach out to people throughout the community. I reach out to teachers and students. I work hand in hand with a lot of other students through student organizations. And that's going to be a big part of my job right there. One thing that I do want to announce, like that I'm formally announcing because we're kicking it off and I'm getting in the process of rolling is, next year we're going to have equity teams and they're going to be trial runs at 2 schools. I'm not going to announce which schools because I don't think that's fair, but they will be run at 2 schools. These equity teams, they're going to be on the ground and location-specific teams, in which case they can engage in these 3 steps at a school level without having to be there on a day-to-day basis or oversight. It also provides a platform for teachers to be trained and learn and understand the needs of equity from somebody who they view as
water or decanter.
Oh, sorry. Somebody came off of mute.
The bathroom?
Train.
To mute their mic.
There she goes.
Sorry, that threw me into a loop. I think I was talking about the teams. The teams will be there at a school level. Ideally, what the teams will do, they'll be able to address equity-related concerns and issues at the school. They'll be able to hopefully get a handle of them before I would have to, you know, come into play. And at the same time, they also be able to do things, simple things such as training and providing preemptive services to make sure all of our staff and students are adequately prepared to meet the challenges that are of the 21st century in equity. To give you an example, one of the big things that I'm excited to have them do is things such as lesson plan review, or assessing disaggregated data about how behavioral situations are addressed among students. These things would be very, very focal, very, very crucial in making sure that we can understand how each school is doing in terms of equity and where they need to go in the future. So that's going to be my brief spiel. If you have any questions, I please and beg of you, please reach out to me. My email, I normally put it in the chat, but chat's disabled. So I will just say that it's jonathan.phipps@svsu.org. Please, my email is open. I typically get back to anybody who emails me within 24 to 48 hours if I'm good at it. If you email me on a Friday, you're not going to hear from me until Monday, though. So that's my fair warning to you. If there's any questions, I'm all ears.
Thank you, Jonathan. Oh, I just wanted to say thank you. Welcome, glad to see you. And I would hope that periodically, maybe quarterly, semi-annually, something, you'll be able to give us a picture of what's happening.
Crucial work being done by Jonathan. I'm glad that we have him on board, and I want to say that he's been impactful already in his short period of time. So I'll welcome you again, Jonathan, and welcome aboard. Next person who's going to address the board is Assistant Superintendent Laura Boudreau. She's going to talk about the parent advisory committees from the administrative perspective and where we are with that, particularly in regards to what is come from our Title I monitoring. So, Laura?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing the topic tonight. My partners in this work with title funding is Melissa Senecal, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, and Renee Gordon, Director of Finance. And we help to monitor our title funding system, which has many requirements and assurances. And one of the assurances is linked to parent engagement. And I'm going to, in a minute, if it's okay, Jim, can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I took some snippets from the policy that was adopted tonight. It was a 2-year process, and it was part of the updates that were required federally and then interpreted and shared with us at the district level. So I'm gonna share my screen, and you'll be able to find most of the information you will be able to find, other than a few of my notes, in the actual body of the policy itself, and then also in the administrative regulations. Okay. So policy 5010, compensatory engagement parent involvement, which you adopted tonight, maintains programs, activities, and procedures for the involvement of parents and guardians of students receiving services or enrolled in programs under Title I Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESSA. These programs, activities, and procedures are described in school district and school level compacts. Parent involvement activities conducted annually to implement these requirements shall occur at both the school and supervisory unions. So that's in the body of the policy. And then the chunk of the work at the that describes our process for implementing this happens in the administrative regulations. So this work started prior to the pandemic of revising this policy. We knew it was on the radar. It was a focus of the state of Vermont. And so we knew it was coming, and we started immediately working with the policy committee. And then we also the Agency of Education provided support for us to revise the administrative regulations with the goal of getting parents engaged in the process, and always all parents. How do we find and how do we provide opportunities for all parents to have voice? So on top of that, so prior to the pandemic, the policy committee, we had made recommendations, and based on feedback we'd received from the states, and then at public policy meetings, this work started prior to the pandemic. And then we just finalized it recently. And then the state of Vermont chose us for parent engagement monitoring this year. And that was a helpful process for us because it asked us to reflect back on the parent engagement, how we're including parents in the decision-making process. And so I'm going to highlight, so the key pieces are those administrative regulations went through meetings, were shared at the policy meetings, most recently the April meeting, and reviewed. And now we are required to annually hold, which I'll get into in just a minute, parent meetings where they can come and where we talk, it's a requirement to share global school data, collect ideas, and have discussions linked to some key components. So we're super lucky that one of the assurances we sign when we accept title money is that we are going to engage in parent conversations. So the next cycle for us to make big changes would be biannually, which would be the winter of 2023. And what we're doing between now and then is we're implementing what we've suggested, and we're collecting feedback from the field during the school year. So we have, again, procedures, and I'm going to highlight some key areas. So every school is a school-wide school, and we have also been working with Bill Basic. Both the two schools, Fisher and Arlington, both are also considered school-wide schools. So all of these expectations apply to them as well. And we've already started these conversations. And so some of these shifts are new for our schools, but they're good shifts. And I'm so glad for the parents that have come forward asking for where are the places that we have a voice. And I will say that during the pandemic, it was definitely challenging, but we're looking forward to the start of the year. So every school is required to have a continuous improvement plan. And it is our responsibility annually to share the plan, which we've done at all the boards this year. We were supposed to do it last year, but due to the pandemic, all of those presentations at public meetings were delayed until this current year. And so on top of those, the board presentation, those public meetings, each school has to choose 2 of 4 options annually. So building level meetings are super important, and we're encouraging principals to hold meetings where parents can come in and provide feedback and also participate in learning with their children. It is up to the individual schools to design what those engagement activities or meetings look like, but they are required to have it, and we do have to collect evidence that it has happened. Parent-teacher conferences at the they're definitely identified at the elementary level, but could be happening all the way through the middle and high school through phones, phone conversations. There's been a lot of phone conversations and emails. I think our families have never been more connected, and that's been part of our survey feedback we've received from the 3 surveys we did this year. So there are 4 options, and annually 2 of the 4 must be implemented by each school. And one of which we learned this year, we have capacity to do surveys, and that doesn't reach everybody, but it can reach some that would prefer to provide feedback in that manner. And then we also have to be responsible for holding in-person meetings. So we do have to collect information, and our continuous improvement plans are in place till 2023. And then the next cycle for reviewing data to revise them will happen during that school year. So another requirement under parent engagement is the school parent compacts. Every school is required to have a school parent compact. And something new to us this year, which is each school has to engage parents and families in developing the compacts. So that's new for us. So that's going to be another opportunity that's required. And the school can choose how they want to, can work with families to choose what the best way is to do that. This will be the first year we've done that. So our schools by August 1st all have to share some evidence with us that they've engaged parents in the process of working collaboratively to develop the compact. And then they're going to collect information from families about that to see what's working and what's not, so that you can see that we can constantly revise the system. I'm going to give you a little example of a compact because every school does have one. That was something we got a lot of credit for, a positive check that all of our schools, including the early education program, all had school compacts in place. And it's something that's shared with families in different ways because our schools are different sizes. This is one from Pownell Elementary School where it suggests what is the teacher's responsibility, what is the parent's responsibility, and then the student is involved in the process as well, and what is the student's responsibility. And so the compacts are shared in a variety of different forms, and this is also part of the system that principals will be working with their school communities this coming year to refine this, to make sure that every aspect of the system has a voice in this process. But again, the goal is that we're allowing all parents to have an opportunity to participate. And then the last area I wanted to highlight for you is we are required to have annual title parent meetings because all of our schools are school-wide. So it is a requirement that schools must invite and bring together families to have a meeting every year. And there are components of that linked to reviewing data, thinking about program, developing parent engagement activities together, all with the understanding of working towards student achievement. So I just wanted to take a few minutes. So it was just really timely that the people that have asked for this topic this year, that there has been a lot of legwork, and right now we're in the implementation phase of also implementing the things that I've shared. And I want to thank the policy committee and the public meetings that we were able to offer that helped to support this work. And we're looking forward now to collecting feedback to make revisions, but we just wanted you to know that there is a platform and our goal is to find ways for all parents to have access. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I think it's important to say that all parents should have access. So repeat that. Any board questions for Laura? I see Dick has his hand up.
Well, go ahead, Jackie. You got to unmute, Jackie.
I was just wondering, do you keep any statistics on how many parents come in, how many parents engage with you, and compare those to the students' gains?
So I love your question. So we actually, so this is, we have to collect data that we are doing all this. This is an assurance that we sign off on. So unfortunately, Jackie, the pandemic got in the way of some of our routines. And so we were just starting to get our feet wet and holding the annual Title I meetings. And we were collecting attendance because we are required to submit that to the state. But Jackie, thank you for your idea of tracking, thinking about tracking that piece to give us some more insight. And the other piece of data that was helpful for us this year was, which we will now know moving forward, is we could collect data for the people that were filling out surveys. We could do it by how many, we could look at the demographics of families from, the different grade spans, early ed, elementary, middle, and high. And we know that there is not one size fits all for including parents in the conversation. So I think it's how we continue to be creative in engaging all parents in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Dick.
I guess I have two questions. Most of this policy that we're talking about, 5010, is kind of directed at Title I. So I know that you have to meet certain criteria specifically for that. I guess what I'm wondering is, does the same activity generate involvement with any regular ed situations, for lack of a better term? I didn't know.
So Dick, that's a great question. So all of our schools are school-wide, including the Arlington and Fisher, which means that the money can be accessed by all families. And so the good news about what we're talking about is this is an expectation for all of our families, that we provide opportunities for all of our families to participate in parent engagement. So that is one of my favorite things about it, is that it is open to everyone in all families, and it's our responsibility by assigning the assurance to access funding that these engagement activities and soliciting feedback is from everyone. So Dick, it's more about just making sure we're reaching everybody.
My other question was, you have annual reporting timetables. The engagement piece with families and what have you, is there an easy mechanism so that if something comes up that needs to be addressed this month and 2 months from now and 4 months from now, how easy is it to get all these connections made?
So do you mean, so if you're saying if there's a group of people, even with its community members that have a concern, how easy is it to bring them together to meet? Is that kind of what you're talking about, Dick?
I guess that's sort of it. You don't want to wait for an annual
correct. Oh my gosh, yeah.
report card to know where the problems you could have solved last month.
Right. So I think what we do is we establish a minimum, and I think the state helped us, for sure, gave us some great guidance in saying, and I think we picked up on this quickly, we want to have an opportunity at this time of year to help prepare for the next school year and be really reflective on what's happened, and that's in the development of the compact. And then another meeting in the fall prior to November 1, where the official Title I meeting happens, that all parents are able to attend with a set agenda, and that is the other opportunity to come together. And then we encourage all of our building administrators to bring people together. And I think what the pandemic has helped us realize is there's multiple ways to do that. And that's the part I hope, that's a positive that I hope we take away from this period of time. I never knew we could lift up surveys so quickly and get feedback so quickly to impact decisions we were making, or that we could use our website, or we could call people, or there could be, these forums are also opportunities to come together, which also gives feedback to go back. So I think the minimum is definitely, twice a year, but again, encouraged. We also have parents that sit on different committees that we have, especially at the district level, that help to support. But I appreciate your question, but our procedures outline at least two, and the hope, Dick, is that there are more. It's a work in progress.
I think one thing that's important to mention is one thing that we talk about frequently in our administrative circles is the digital divide, that we know that not all of our parents can be reached digitally. So how do we address that? It's similar to how someone who may be speaking, a different language, communication is key. So it's something that, we're working to develop because it's a concern, and it came up as part of this review. So I do want to thank Laura for all her work on this. It pleases me anytime I can highlight the hard work that our assistant superintendent is doing on behalf of our districts. So thank you, Laura, for this. Any other questions for Laura before I move on? Yeah, and she's not alone on this work. But once I go down that thank you hole, I always leave somebody out. But thank you. So I just want to remind the board that
I was trying to unmute here.
Oh,
so I take it this process is supposed to have multiple feedback points and in time. And so suppose that, and I suppose it's over time, if you make a response to particular issues that are brought up, then do you then reassess with the people who are involved or engaged in this to see if those have actually had desired impact?
So I think, so you think, thanks for that question, Ray. And I think that's why that minimum requirement of 2 touch points should provide a base for that. And again, remember, we're implementing some of these changes this year. And then the hope is always, Ray, that when some people come to you with, a group come forward and would like to talk about something, especially in the context of those settings, that you're coming up with some solutions that then you can show back out, share with your field. That's a lot of, so yes, that is the goal. Yeah. And so Ray, that's something we're going to be monitoring. Yes.
It absolutely is the goal. Honestly, what's the point of doing it if we're not going to take feedback and give feedback? So
that would be my presumption too. Yep. So yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't want it to be just a process that we're going through to go through the process to appease, Title I people at the federal level and AOE at the state level. This is something we get feedback for, so how we can shift what we're doing. Any questions from any other board members? Okay, a couple of reminders. I just want, our third mediation session with the Teachers Association will be a week from tomorrow at 3:30. We've met, this will be the third meeting in an attempt at mediation. The first was May 12th and then against May 18th, both long nights. It's my hope that we can get to a mediated settlement. And I think that both sides have worked hard at that. And I recognize our teachers that are here this evening. I support your passion, and I hope that we can reach an agreement. And I, again, thank you for your service in what has been an extremely difficult period in education across the country. So tomorrow is my weekly meeting with Secretary of Education Dan French, and then Friday's news conference with the superintendent, with the governor, where we're waiting to see if any specific COVID guidance is going to change as we get to the end of the year, particularly around health and safety and how we operate. One caution that I'd like to say is that CDC guidance and Vermont Department of Health guidance, as the Secretary of Education likes to remind us, is not necessarily immediately transferred to AOE guidance. So the guidance that I wait for, the directive that I wait for, is what comes from Secretary of Education Dan French, and that's when we'll shift if there's going to be anything about like use of buildings, masks in the building, physical distancing requirements. So I do want to say that from everything I've heard, I think that when we open, parents need to hear this too, that when we open in the fall, that we will be 5 days a week and back to a normal schedule. And that won't happen in all grade levels if the physical distancing is still in place. But there's no indication right now that that is going to remain. So in-person meetings is still part of that restriction. So like this Zoom board meeting, I think we should plan that this is going to happen again in June, and we typically do not meet in July. But I think that, something dramatic may happen. And in August, we may actually have the ability to meet in person. And I want to thank Frank Barnes and his tech department. The conference room, we've been trying it out. The conference room at central office has the ability to do hybrid meetings. So we would be able to go in there and conduct, for those of you who didn't feel comfortable coming into the building, you could stay at home and Zoom. And so the monitor, there's speakers, there's a camera, permanent camera that would allow us to do meetings in there. So maybe by August we'll be using that facility. The administrators have used it for some Zoom meetings. We can continue to practice to get that. And if that works well, I'd like to explore this is our small scale test. And if that works well, I'd like to move that up to move a similar system into the middle school. So, because I do think that, things are going to change. There's no reason that everyone has to be physically present for a meeting. Vermont always allowed that by statute, but it was very difficult to do that by somebody joining in by phone. It never was quite the same thing. And remember, for those, I'll just repeat it, but I know many of you know it, that Vermont, as long as that there was somebody present to allow the public to come into where the meeting was publicly warned for, then that was something that was always available in Vermont. And so we're going to try and enhance that so that we can get people to be comfortable as we start to return to in-person meetings. But that guidance hasn't changed yet, and I don't think that's going to happen for our June meetings either. So any questions for me this evening that haven't been answered that I could answer for you? Not seeing any, Dick, so I'll turn the meeting back over to the chair.
Okay, thank you, Jim and Laura. The past 4 weeks I have been attending education required for board chairs, and it's covered every educational piece you could imagine, from equity to accountability to survey data. And so I just want you to know that that's happening. There are several websites you can connect to through the VSBA if you want to see how negotiations on medical coverage are going, or a variety of policies that are being developed. Also, if you would like to supply a resolution on any issue that the VSBA, the Vermont School Board Association, might put forward to the legislature, the time to do that is on us. Parent Advisory Council, we heard a lot from Laura, and the policy committee had tackled at least part of that issue. Jeff Leake has put together quite a number of notes to see if it could become a more formal group, I guess is what he would like to see. I guess what we need to know is, what's the board position on this? Where do we want to go from here regarding Parent Advisory Council? Is it well enough covered through our Title I Parent Involvement Compact? Certainly we don't need yet more work for our administrative team. So I guess I'm looking for feedback from the board. Jackie.
Well, I've heard everybody speak about this, and I believe the more voices that you hear, the better we are as a group. And so I'm all for having the Parent Advisory Committee. And I think we should start slowly and then build it up. Because if we go at it full force, we might, drop the whole thing, and that's not a good thing. But I think we need parents to tell us what they need and what they see is a concern for them. And I hope, my hope is that it's on a different night. It's as I said, I think we should start slowly and build.
I'd like to comment on that. You just passed a policy tonight that includes, these committees, and I think you should give this policy time to play out and see how that works out before you add another layer to it.
Yeah, and the
superintendent's thought. Yeah.
Nicole,
the structure.
Go ahead,
I was
Nicole.
just going to say.
Go ahead, Nicole.
The structure that Laura had outlined, I mean, that implemented to its fullest kind of potential seems like it would address some of the immediate thoughts and, not I would say concerns, but interest from parents to be engaged and involved. And the only thing I would caution on is to start a parent involvement committee that isn't tied to a larger, more long-range plan, because the longer range plan gives you mechanisms for implementation. And if you do a committee now without the mechanism for implementation, essentially you're giving people a soapbox without a way to take their feedback and do something with it. And that could be really detrimental.
Well, thank you.
I see Jayla's hand up.
Yeah. So I think it was at like a previous meeting, we talked about potentially, or maybe it was at SVSUE, whatever the heck we are, acronym. I think we talked about having potentially adding a committee to our board committees and potentially have representation from the board to, as part of that, like committee assignment, to begin starting to talk about that and kind of determining, you know, what it could or would look like. Is there still a, you know, thought to do that? And how it maybe wraps into what Laura outlined.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, this is Leon. What I was thinking in terms of that was, we have an education and a policy committee, which we look for avenues to get information concerning anything in the school related to any of the activities that are going on. And we do that with education, and we do that with policy throughout the district. If there are concerns from any individuals or parents so that need to be addressed, think they need to be addressed, we formalize those things at our education and policy committees to be able to manage that and get resolution to it.
Are you suggesting, Leon, that there should be a format put forward by policy that brings concerns to the SVSU, or?
Well, they can come to the education committee, or they can come to the policy committee. So they don't, I mean, we use the we use public comment section as a section to hear concerns about any of the workings when it comes to policies in the school. And then we use education committees to hear any of the concerns about class work activities, how things are being taught, or whether something needs to be taught in the school. So that's how they handle. So unless you want to, I'm saying on the public comment, you can list a parent, I mean, it's public comment, but you can say parent concerns along that line that may be more inviting than they are by just saying public comment. It could be something along that line.
Jackie.
May I suggest that, you know, I said to start slowly, and I kind of forgot that Laura had this program already set up, but and the same as somebody else said, we needed structure so that it doesn't turn into, oh, but what's your complaint? What's your complaint? We need something that's devoted to the educational realm instead of just saying, you know, the bus is always late. May I suggest that we start with Laura's committee? Is it a committee or is it an advisory council?
It's a policy, and it's the procedure outlined in that requires all of our schools to engage in the process.
With each building, a committee with each building.
Yeah.
Right. So that we start with that structure, and then we see if something else is needed beyond that.
So I'm hearing that we need to go forward slowly with Laura's program, see how that works.
Richard?
Fran?
I mean, I agree. I think you should start with that, but it sounds to me from what I've heard tonight, they want to start their own committee. They don't want to join Laura's. They don't want to join SVSU's. They want their own committee. I've seen this happen before, years and years ago. So you might want to make it very clear to those people that we're going to use Laura's format and then go from there. And they may still want to do their own thing. I don't know. But I think if they've already started it, and we should probably follow that. And it's not to be against anybody. It's just that why reinvent the wheel.
Can I suggest that we revisit the topic once Laura's teams have some kind of feedback for us, I guess, whether it's working for administration?
We'll put it on an agenda meeting this fall with an update of the progress that those school-based committees are doing?
Maybe to help the people who are inquiring now about wanting to be part of a committee, Laura, is there information that could be shared with the public about what the structure and the process and what the resources would be like, with the full acknowledgement that this is not something that's currently being done, but this is something that we will be doing, and here's the scope and here's the timeline.
Yes.
So that there can be something, instead of the board going back to these community members saying, well, we're going to defer to this future plan. If you could come back to the community and say, here's what that plan is, and here's what the implementation timeline is.
Yeah, so thank you for that suggestion. And I like that. And we've also been trying to, the group, we've been trying to use our website more as a resource, just as one tool, having links on our website, but we have the newsletter, and hopefully we can get something out. And we are working to support all the principals in rolling this out. But I love the idea of bringing back feedback about how it's going, because that's what it's all about.
And we're going to have to report that out to AOE as on the report anyway. So it's good to compile it into one universal spot. I mean, when I talked earlier about the digital divide, that's the same concern. Like, how do we get the message out of the opportunity to do this with everyone? You know, we put so much on our website, but we also know that not everybody goes to it. We also use our social media accounts to do it, but even that still, you know, long gone is the days that a flyer goes home with a student. Though recently we just resorted to that again for the COVID vaccine. So we're committed to trying whatever method it is to cross particularly that digital divide for families that don't use that as a way to get their information.
Right.
Great. Yeah, I have one suggestion here, and that's to actually have a meeting with the people who showed up tonight, supporting the idea, and anybody else that is part of that group, and see what it is they want, and to talk about what it is that's ensconced in this policy. And, you know, that would not involve a digital divide, except it's probably going to be a Zoom meeting at this point. And that probably is a digital divide, but all those folks were here on Zoom. So it seems like that would be a possibility. And a quicker way perhaps to get to their point, what it is they view it as.
I am leaning toward Laura Nicole said, get it started, get some information out there. And I think my personal feeling is, if we do that before we start pulling people together, there's something to look at. At least there's some metrics that are probably developed. There's a list of concerns or whatever. And that will give a decent starting point. I don't know if the board agrees with that, but I think I'm hearing that. Do we need any more discussion on this?
No.
Okay, I think it is a good thing to put on a future agenda, however, for the fall. Give several months and see what happens. By then, we may also have a report from Jonathan Phipps that might dovetail with some of the stuff that's going on there also. The only other thing I wanted to say was Katie West, Nick, and Jayla have been working out letters, retirement letters, and our clerk hasn't in years past had a great deal to do, and now she's flooded. And Nick, I think, does extraordinary work. I don't want to eliminate other people from my compliments, but every time I see something come from Nick's office or something that Katie West is involved with, it's good work. And thank you to Jayla for taking that on. We Also, we have we have non-binding action if anybody has any other issues to bring before the board. No, then we are looking for an executive session for 1 VSA 313, the employment or evaluation of public officer. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Second it.
Motion from Fran, second from Leon. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we will go to executive session. I think we would like to invite Nick and Jim.